Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Hussein Kasim of AliTalksTech. Today, I have another super interesting guest, my good friend and brother, Moses Kemibaro. Moses, Moses' career and mine are sort of almost, we've actually walked this digital journey together to date. Moses, karibu sana.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Asante Moses. So Moses is the founder and CEO of Dotsavvy. Moses, Dotsavvy is a digital agency today, one of the leading ones in the region. But I recall our years way back. What? Late 90s?
Yes, very late 90s.
Late
yes.
90s at 3 Miles Interactive Media.
Yes.
Then one of the first digital agencies in this region. And today you're running your own agency, but you are also a key opinion leader. And Moses, I want to emphasize, you are a key opinion leader. You're not a blogger. You're not an influencer, because the things you do influence major conversations and major decisions, not just in Kenya, across Africa. So let's talk about, Moses, your work. What you're currently doing and how you're seeing the space that you operate in, the intersection of marketing and technology. Over to you, bro.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. And once again, thank you for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure. So I think if we talk about, let's say, the context of where you and I were,
Correct.
20 plus years ago, was
Yes,
at 3 Miles, which I think at the time was arguably East Africa's first digital agency.
correct.
And of course, as you know, back then, the focus was predominantly building and managing websites. And that was what it was. That's what the internet was, websites. And of course, since then, I think so much has changed. But in that journey, I think there's been several iterations. As you know, when we worked at 3 Miles, at some point I resigned to focus on Dotsavvy.
That's correct.
Dotsavvy, as we speak now, is 21 years old. So
Wow.
it's actually an adult.
Wow.
And that was nurtured from my single room accommodation many years ago, and just building it up over the years. And what I can say is that since then, I think you have to look at the dynamics of the market, right?
Yes.
What is the internet to us today?
Yes.
Those days, there was no 3G, mobile phones didn't have internet.
Most people had dial-up.
Exactly, dial-up.
And if you had, we used to call them leased lines.
Exactly, leased lines, if you had the privilege of one of those.
If you had the privilege.
In the organization you worked in. So you got to say that maybe at that point, the internet was very nascent. Yeah, it was something that was there. People were using it as a replacement for the fax machine.
Mm-hmm.
The utility was quite limited.
Mm-hmm.
And a website, for all intents and purposes, back then was just a brochure, business profile, put it online, put some graphics, and you had a website.
And that was it.
Yeah. And I think if you look at that evolution, I think many things started to happen. Of course, we saw the uptake of the internet exploding from that point onwards. The arrival of the high-speed internet connections to the country, of which I think we have several of them now, increase the quality of the internet. The mobile device was a key driver, moving from 2G all the way to now 5G. And I think for me, what is profound is that even with all these developments, the infrastructure, the should I call it the ubiquity of the internet, as it were, it still feels like we're just getting started. Yeah, the opportunities are immense. The potential
So
is still
20 years
on. Yeah.
We are still getting started.
Oh, we're still getting started. I don't think we've scratched the surface of what's possible.
Wow.
And the reason I say this is, I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I happened to be in the UK, and we'd gone for a friend's wedding. And I think it was the time when, I think it was when Wales at the time, and was staying with some friends. And that was my first experience of what I like to call e-commerce the way Amazon does it, right?
Okay.
So you sign up for an Amazon Prime account. for that period of time. And
Okay.
every evening before, I think midnight, you'd order your things. I bought a camera, I bought things for the house.
In the morning, you have your stuff.
And then the stuff would be, a postman would arrive the next morning and it'd have all these things. So every morning was their Christmas day. And that's a kind of aha moment when I started to realize the brilliance of Amazon. Now, I'm not saying that our e-commerce, comparatives in Kenya are worse than that. I'm just saying that you start to understand what the internet is really about. And I think in Kenya right now, if you look at even, say, the fintech space, which you're very familiar with, and the
Correct.
things that you can do, you start to see mobile apps, you start to see the high-speed internet, what it makes possible, the use cases of what you can do on top of that layer called the internet. Then, of course, you have to look at the proliferation of social media and the way that this has allowed even people like me and you to become thought leaders in our respective areas of focus.
Correct.
And having thousands of people following what we say, listening to what we do, and then that in turn has also opened up commercial opportunities for us as individuals and businesses. So that's why I say we're still getting started. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of what this thing will ultimately be. And let me not even get started on AI. Right, the advent of generative AI is yet another paradigm shift that we're expecting to happen.
Okay, so Moses, we'll come back to the AI conversation.
Yeah.
Which I believe increasingly we are at the threshold of another transformative technology that will completely change our lives going forward, for better or worse. How has been your journey
Wow.
to date? From
Yeah.
3 Miles to Dotsavvy. In between, you worked for global
Quite a few
mobile,
companies,
Naspers.
Perform Group and all, yeah. So I think there's several things that have happened since then.
Correct.
Of course. So as you may recall, I think we started the business around 2002.
Yes.
I was very fortunate at the time in that the lawyer who was helping me set it all up introduced me to someone called Robert, who ended
Yes.
up becoming my co-director in the
Yes.
business. So he invested some money. He also had a technology background, and we started running the business. And of course, at that point, sometime in 2002, we started, building websites and working with various clients. And I think we're very fortunate at the onset because maybe it's because I'd worked at 3 Miles, but I was able to onboard what I'd consider to be premium clients. So insurance
Correct.
companies, banks. So from day one, we already had what I'd call premium clients.
Yes.
And that I think really helped us sort of move in the right direction as opposed to starting to get to big accounts. We
Correct.
started with big accounts. And because I come from a sales background, a technology sales background, that was very
Your days
important.
at Africa Online?
Exactly. Over the years, and I was very highly trained by Africa Online. I'm very grateful for the time I had at Africa Online, which was one of the first and largest ISPs in the country. I always had this notion that you had to create a product or a service you can sell.
Correct.
Now, I know the dispensation today is that people want to raise rounds of funding, but I come from the old school mentality of you need to have a sellable product, and that is what pays the bills.
So basically, your best customer is a paying customer.
Exactly.
Sorry, your best funding is a paying customer.
Yes. So that was kind of like the beginning, and I think we grew organically. A lot of our income was what allowed us to grow, and it was very exciting. Very, a trajectory that was very good for a long time. And as you recall, we ended up becoming a significant competitor to people like 3 Miles and Metrocomia.
Correct.
And then you and I were sort of on the other side of the playing field.
Yes.
And I think probably the biggest paradigm shift we saw somewhere in there was when the ad agencies, companies like Scanad and the likes, who used to actually give us clients, people like Kenya Power.
They founded their own.
They decided
startups.
to now create their own digital agencies because until that point, they didn't see it as a focus area. The revenues weren't there. And in particular, when I think we saw...
But we kind of predicted that, didn't we?
It was going to come, but I think they kind of surprised us a little bit because what we then understood is that this is a client services business. And the fact that they'd had relationships with the Coca-Colas and the Kenya Airways and all the endemic brands.
It was easier to just bring it on.
Yeah, just bolt on a digital competence. And also create these little agencies that would focus on digital as part of the group. So overnight, what tended to happen is that I remember we had NIC Bank, we lost NIC Bank, we had ICA Lion, we lost them. We lost a lot of key accounts that we had because the agencies woke up and realized, hang on a second,
these guys are eating a lunch.
Digital is becoming the thing. And now we need to sort of bring in the business. So the first thing that happened is obviously they secured the business across the board holistically. And then the second thing that happened is talent
they
flight.
raided your talent.
Talent flight, yes. And it was very painful in the sense that these were near-death experiences for the business.
Yeah.
Because obviously we lost the revenue, but now we lost the talent as well that made that revenue possible. And we went through many, many instances where we'd be losing 3-4 people in a go.
Wow.
We'd have to then recruit, train, start from scratch. And invariably in that sort of, chaos, we were unable to service our existing clients as well. So we also lost clients because we lost the competence each time to actually
service them.
deliver the work. And I remember one of them saying a very harsh remark, like, it looks like your company is a house of revolving doors. Like people just come and go. Like there's no
It's a very
consistency.
humbling experience.
Oh, it was painful. I don't even know till today how we survived that. Now 21 years in. So up and down, up and down. And going back to what you're asking me earlier, the things I did outside that, in many of those feasts and famines as they were, they reached a point where me and my co-director, we sort of decided to part ways at that point mutually, amicably, because things were not looking good. He also had other things he wanted to do. But also for me, it became a moment of reflection because, I was a young family now. I was married.
Yes.
I had a young child. And quite honestly, things were not looking good. And it was so funny, but I remember my wife, I think, seeing this ad for a job. And of course, at this point, you're thinking, I'm the entrepreneur. I must tough it out. I must find a way. And that's what conventional wisdom says, you're going to get through. But it was that tough. It was like, if I don't do something now, I'm really going to struggle. So she saw this job ad for NASPERS, which was this position to work at setting up a classifieds business called Dealfish. Yes. And this is interesting because there's a strong convergence between the thought leadership guy and the entrepreneur guy at Dotsavvy, because I then applied for this thing, immediately. I don't know how she found the job ad. I sent it. And I think within 30 minutes or 40 minutes, I got a phone call from South Africa. Yes. And I get this call and they ask me, Moses Kemibario, are you the person who's applied here? Yes. Are you the same person who's blogging at moseskemibaro.com? Yes. Okay, my boss would like to speak to you. Can we call you at a specific time? So the boss in turn calls me and he says, okay, are you the guy we've been reading for the last 3 years or so on a blog that tells us what's happening in the tech scene in Kenya? I said, yeah. So all the days and times I was spending in the iHub on my laptop, documenting events, writing about developments around technology, had actually become this almost quasi newspaper that these tech teams in South Africa in NASPERS were reading, because I would give them real-time updates on what's happening in Kenya.
Your live CV, literally.
Yes. So it wasn't even an interview. Then I think we met up, a week later. He was in Kenya because they was in the process of recruiting. At that point, of course, they already had Mocality running on the ground.
Yes, I remember Mocality.
And a few other startups like Kalahari. And they reach out to me. So we have this interview. And first of all, they're like stoked that I'm the one who applied. And they're like, we already know who you are. So the next question asked me, okay, so we already want you. It's not an interview, really. You know what's happening.
When can you start and
when can you start?
What's the deal?
Do? You have a business you're running. How's that going to run if you come to us? And all these questions. And then I basically had to name my price, and it wasn't even really a difficult one. The money was good anyway. But it also gave me an opportunity to kind of step away from the business and see this digital space in a more holistic way.
Perspective.
So, and also peace of mind, right? So I then got a general manager into my business to run day to day. And I did that for about 1.5 years, I think. And then as I'm doing this work, one of the people that we started to engage with a company called InMobi. And at that point, you might remember that Isis Nyong'o had left Google to join InMobi, which was kind of like a stunning update locally because you're like, how do you leave Google? It just didn't seem logical. And we started using InMobi to run ads for Dealfish, which was at the point already the largest classifieds business in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania.
Correct.
So they reach out to me and they say, Moses, the job. And I'm kind of comfortable. I'm kind of like, everything is good. Even though I was not in my business, it was running well. So now I even had the opportunity to realize I don't have to be in my business to run my business. Correct. So that was very powerful in terms of just shifting my perspective. But more importantly, InMobi then kind of reached out, and I think ICS sent me a job ad, and I was like, well, let me see. And then I was really
let me think about it.
Yeah. And then, she's no, please apply, just try. You never know. And it ended up being an interview where I think I got interviewed by 10 different people across the planet.
Whoa. Because
InMobi was hiring the best talent globally. Right. And in fact, I remember when I went for my orientation at the beginning of 2012, after I'd resigned from Dealfish, you'd find that when we went to, because they were based in Bangalore, and we went for a sort of a retreat for the sales teams, everyone there was ex-Google, ex-Microsoft, ex-Nokia.
Interesting.
And really rock stars in all their countries and backgrounds from across the planet. So to the point where I was kind of wondering, how did I end up here? How do I
A
qualify?
bit odd.
Yeah. So I worked there for a while, and we did amazing business. It was one of the largest mobile ad networks at the time, and still continues to be, I believe, till today. And
In Mobi continues up to today.
oh yeah, it's big, it's significant, and they got a lot of investments over the years. People like
Interesting.
SoftBank, but more importantly, just expanded my scope beyond East Africa. Right before Dealfish was East Africa, in Mobi gave me sort of North Africa, East, and also West Africa.
So it expanded your vision.
Oh yeah, I saw
across-
things so differently. How
across
do you go and
Africa.
sell advertising to somebody who can barely speak English in Egypt, and you actually do it? Or go to West Africa, where it's one of the few countries in Nigeria where your potential buyer will tell you where you're going to take him for lunch or dinner. That's Nigeria for you.
They will tell you where you are taking them
yeah,
for lunch. Not I'm taking you for lunch at this
No,
place.
I'm like, I want to take you on. Okay, fine, but you will take me here. And tended to be a restaurant that will be very expensive and posh.
That's
or where you
interesting.
stayed during your trips could determine whether you get business, because they wanted you to stay at the best hotel.
Which basically tells us that for most people who think Africa is one country,
Oh, it's completely different.
it's 54 different countries.
Yeah.
Different perspectives, different culture.
I'll tell you something about Nigeria that's interesting. We made most of our money in Nigeria when I was in Mobi, to the extent that it dwarfed anything we're doing in Kenya.
Wow.
But the irony was that it's very high touch. You have to meet those people regularly. You have to be seen and heard. And you have to invest in making that kind of revenue. Because remember, it's probably about 10 times the size of the Kenyan, market size, the economy. So the nuances are there. It's the kind of place where you just love the adrenaline, and the kind of just the sheer size of business opportunities, at least back then, were incredible. And then, of course, going to the Arab world and working in Egypt and places like that was also, again, mind-blowing. Just understanding different cultures, doing things differently, and learning how to sell digital advertising across a number of markets was interesting. Yeah. So that was there. Then I had a period after that, because in Mobi then shut down across many markets as they focused in on North America, Europe, and certain parts of Asia. And Africa, unfortunately, was compromised in that decision. Even though we were running at, I think, 400% run rate, we were growing like crazy. But then I got to work with Goal.com, again, doing ad sales, because some guys I'd met at InMobi, who Goal had been one of our platforms for selling advertising, reached out to me and said, would you like to do sales in East Africa, which I did. And that, again, proved to be quite a successful stint as well. Of course, all along here, I'm kind of
You're still running
business. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the business and in the background of things, yes, and going through different iterations. But I think for me, there's something I want to share a little bit about the agency side, which is the transition between websites and social media.
Correct.
The wake up call, like I said, is when the agencies woke up, consolidated accounts, and then we saw this transition to social media. And I have this narrative where I remember we saw the job ads specifically for, I think it was Squad Digital. And I shared those with my co-director at the time. And I just told him, you know what the heck is a social media community manager? You got to remember, this is during the heart of web business. So social was coming in, and these guys had job descriptions for roles in social media.
Wow.
Different ones. And I remember sending the link to him. I said, you know what? If these are the positions they're hiring for, then clearly we're out of our depth.
Yeah.
All right? And that for me was a significant turning point. So what happened then is, until that
point, was a wake-up call.
Yeah, our business had been a finely tuned, finely built, smoothly running machine built to build and manage websites. Now we had to acquire this entire new skill set. We had to hire new types of people. We had to learn how to make content. And that continues till this day, where we are probably 80% around social media related activities and 20% around the websites and the likes. But now we've reached a point where we're even creating TV commercials. We're writing scripts. We're trying to understand.
So this is now.
This is now. And now, again, the next big thing is AI. We're trying to understand, how do we bring AI into our
So before we
process?
come to AI.
But as a service. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we come to AI, you are now telling me that the Dotsavvy business has completely evolved.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're back at Dotsavvy full time.
I have been now for a number of years.
You have been now for a number of years. And you are now basically what you call a full service agency.
Yes, we'll do everything. And I think the thing that we also learned during the pandemic, and I think we can't talk about our business without
Yes.
talking about the pandemic,
We can't.
is it really changed everything. Because for the very first time in almost 20 years, our clients finally got it, right? I think until that point, digital was sort of seen as something you need to do, but it wasn't fundamentally important.
Look, COVID, I think, was a watershed moment
For everyone.
for everyone. New terms before COVID, BC, CADIT, which you coined,
Yeah.
COVID-assisted digital transformation,
Yes.
and then AC after COVID.
Yes.
Things have evolved so much. I was speaking to a good friend of mine a couple of hours ago, and we were talking about how even leadership has evolved tremendously. You come in and you've not in a new job as a leader, and you have not seen your people physically for over a year.
Mhm.
And you are meant to make them work. You are meant to make sure that objectives are met and stuff. So talk to us about that period. AC,
Well, we're not out of it.
BC, CADIT, and AC.
Yeah. So if we talk about before COVID, let's be honest. I mean, things were happening. We're
Yeah.
doing work. Things were not bad. But everything was kind of like stable and, consistent. And what I can say is that, the market has been what it's been. Clients were still prioritizing a lot of traditional media and traditional ways of doing business. And everything was fine. And I think for me, the COVID moment was profound because as a business that had has a relatively small office, we knew that immediately we need to just let everyone go home. So we were probably one of the first companies to just shut the office and send people home.
Shut it down completely.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about it is without even realizing it, we were already digitally remote because our finance software is in the cloud. We use Google for our work processes. We stopped using a physical server a long time ago.
Everything is in the cloud.
All our resources are already in the cloud. So we were already ready to go digitally.
You were COVID ready.
Yeah, we were COVID ready, so to speak. Yeah. So we didn't have a problem transitioning. Now, as we speak, this is almost 3.5 years later, we're still working remotely. We have an office.
You never went back.
No, we never went back. We tried, I think, 1 or 2 weeks at some point, and it was so awkward and uncomfortable that everyone was like, this is not working. Even just people were like commuting to work was a hassle. The 2 hours from some of them were spending 2 hours on the road each way, and they're like, what are we doing here? Because remember, what you learned as a leader now is there must be some level of trust to your team.
So the new normal.
The new normal. So we are continuously, until today, working remotely. And here's the thing. We are very likely going to give up our office within the next few months.
Wow.
Completely. All right? We don't need an office. And the thing about it is the work processes allow you to monitor progress. You just need to look at your project management softwares, look at your spreadsheets, whatever it is. What's due this week? What's due by when? And you don't have to be in an office.
It's actually interesting. I visited a friend of mine at Safaricom a couple of weeks ago, and she told me 70% of the workforce at Safaricom works hybrid.
Yeah, hybrid is a compromise.
2 days, sometimes not even. Senior leadership probably have to come to the office.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But the fact of the matter is that we are into the new normal, that we have not even appreciated or understood that transition is complete.
It's completely done.
What do you have to say to companies who insist, especially knowledge workers, who insist that their employees must come to the office every day?
I think it's a legacy model because if you think about it, probably the biggest tragedy of remote working is maybe culture. Let's be honest, right? Proximity of people builds a culture. And you struggle with that sometimes. When you're doing brainstorm sessions with your team, especially in a creative agency like ours, some of those things are a little bit harder or awkward because you don't have that face time. You don't have that intimacy. It's not as tactile as being there in person.
So how do you compromise?
Well, there are different ways. We obviously find workarounds. We've just sort of found a way of doing it. And increasingly, what you'll find is that even our own clients are even bigger culprits of preferring not to meet in person, which is shocking. Many of them are like, look, every Wednesday at this time, we're here for our weekly status. The same clients are like, no, you don't have to come here. Why are you coming here? Why do you want to come see us?
That's brilliant.
So it also means that from an operational standpoint, it's actually cheaper to operate. Because now you don't have to get guys into Ubers and stuff, go for meetings and all this. Of course, we're still doing meetings, but it's not as frequent or as necessary as it used to be.
You know, I sit on several boards. You know that, Moses. One company that I sit on the board of, if you had told me that we'll still be meeting board meetings and board committee meetings virtually to date, 1 year after COVID was declared not to be a pandemic anymore, I would have told you, stop smoking what you're smoking.
And yet here we are.
Yet here we are. This is an old school company. So I think the fear around culture, in my humble opinion, is that it is misplaced. It is misplaced because you can have bad culture when you're meeting.
Yes.
You can have toxic culture when
Correct.
you're meeting. And you can have great culture when you are 80%, 90% actually collaborating virtually. There's always that, I think it's important for human nature, for every so often, for teams to meet.
FaceTime, yes.
First time, maybe once a quarter, once a month. But the fact of the matter is that we are living in a completely new world than before COVID.
Correct.
And that 2 hours that you spend on a commute
It's not adding up.
is not adding up.
I mean, I know for a fact, for instance, I'm probably on a typical work day when my kids are in school. Once I've dropped them in school, I'm back. The transition is instant. I just park the car,
Yes.
go into what used to be the SQ. I start working, right? And then typically in the evenings after I've done the school run and things like this, I
You're
work
back to
again.
work.
Yeah. So it works for me. It's comfortable. It works. And then of course we have invariably situations where we have to go do presentations or meet clients and so forth, and those become in-person moments. What's hilarious is sometimes we found that we've been working with colleagues for 5, 6, 7 months who'd
You've
never
not
met
met.
in person until a day when those two people were needed in a particular meeting.
Physical.
And that's the first time they met.
Wow.
And yet they're actually buddies. They're friends. They crack jokes with each
There
other.
you go.
But they've
There
never
you
met
go.
in person.
There you go.
In this big Nairobi,
So one thing that I find quite interesting is the fact that businesses today, new businesses won virtually and executed virtually. I recall our old school thinking those days that for us to actually sign a contract, we have to have a handshake. Literal physical meeting. Today we have DocuSign.
Yes, exactly.
You are signing everything, and I have worked for clients in New York who I've never met, finished the work, got paid,
Yeah.
and I've never met them. And
There
I'm
you
sure
go.
you have the same case. So we've dealt with the culture. For me, I think it's a myth. As long as a leader, you must find the right mix
Yeah.
in terms of virtual work and stuff. So every so often, happy hour,
Habanyama Joma.
TGIF,
Yeah.
thank God it's Friday and stuff like that. Now let's talk about where we are at. How new tech, I like to call it new tech, because today is artificial intelligence and machine learning. Tomorrow is something else. How's that affecting the space you are working in?
Well, I have to say, I mean, and of course, when you sort of drill down to specifics, let's talk
Let's do that.
Let's talk about ChatGPT.
Mm.
Okay, now
That's generative AI.
yeah, generative AI. So if you look at specifically, when I start to look at the points within service delivery or even the work that we do in an agency where it becomes relevant, let's just talk about one of the simplest ones: social media content calendars, right? And this is something as a digital trainer, I always show my clients and people I'm training how you can go into a tool like ChatGPT and say, give me, a content calendar for 1 week, and you sort of prompt it to give you specifics.
So this is to content managers and community managers, as they are called, social media. There's your tool for content management.
Yeah.
ChatGPT. I'm not sure how many of us are actually using these tools. We hear about them and we talk about them. I'm not sure how many of us hear about these tools, but let's hear from Moses what his experience has been.
Yeah, and then you're able to go in there, and this is so basic. I mean, it means anyone. I mean, the barrier now to the average human being able to create a content calendar for their business is practically zero with the ChatGPT. Meaning, you can give it the different thematics. You can say, I want a content calendar for Christmas. I want something that's specific to a product launch. Once you've given it the context, it produces something that's pretty good.
Wow.
And you'll find that if I was to be very honest, that the person who's now a social media community manager or content creator who works with content calendars, it may have taken them days to do some of this work, but now they can probably do it in half a day. And of course, they've got to bring more context. They've got to refine it. I feel like AI takes you almost like 80% of the way there. And then the 20% becomes your personalization or refinement to get it to the right level. So there's that extra level of effort required. But basically, you're compressing time and process. But I think there's another variable here that's important.
What's that?
And that is that I've seen ChatGPT be able to take what could have been considered average or maybe even mediocre content, or a person who's just not very good at it, and make them look like a superstar.
Wow.
So it literally has the ability to make an average performer become a star performer, because if they know how to use the tool, then the quality of their outputs is that much better.
But it's all about knowing, it's all about the prompts, right?
It's mastering the query. It's mastering what you're asking, how you're asking it, the context, giving it detail, like I think we were discussing earlier, the way you can ask it to generate a proposal and say, do it in the style and tone of McKinsey. The fact that it's intelligent enough to understand that, or create this in a manner that would be relevant to a Kenyan market. And now it'll figure out that this content is for Kenya.
So it puts context.
Yeah, context. I've done stuff on ChatGPT where I asked it to create a content, and use Sheng and colloquial Kiswahili, and it did it.
What?
In perfect grammar. Perfect Sheng.
What?
Yes.
So this thing we hear that, it's not learned languages and stuff. You're in story too.
No, story too. It'll even give you campaign ideas, big ideas for concepts and stuff you're doing.
In Sheng and in Kiswahili.
Yes. And you can even give it percentages. Make this 20% Sheng. Make it 40% Sheng.
Whoa.
And 80% regular English. It even gets better for developers, right? So today, if one of my developers is building a website and needs some backend code or needs some refinement on that, they can put that query into ChatGPT, even enter the sample code and ask it to improve it or change it or fix it. ChatGPT will do that for you. It'll actually help you, make you a better developer. Now, of course, ChatGPT is probably the poster child of generative AI today. It's easy to use. It's accessible. It's free for the 3.5. You pay for version 4. And I think it's what has sort of lit the world on fire in terms of understanding what is AI. But AI has been with us for at least the last 20 years.
That's correct.
It exists in various platforms. When you're typing in Google and it suggests the next sentence or words, that's AI. I think we were talking earlier about Expensify, which I was using when I was doing a lot of expense reports. You put in your receipts, it's able to tabulate and give you, a spend ledger of some kind. So bottom line is it's been around, but I think ChatGPT is probably the first one that everyone is like looking at and saying, oh my God, this is amazing. This changes my life. Mothers are using it to create their shopping lists, recipes. University students are using it to hack their assignments.
It reminds me of Amara's law. We always overestimate the impacts of new technology in the short term and underestimate the impact of that technology in the long term.
Absolutely. And I think it's valid when people say that you don't need to look at AI as just another version of something on the internet, but you need to look at it as big as a paradigm shift as the internet itself. All right.
Wow.
And I'm saying this because the things I've just told you, I mean, Imagine an agency is looking to hire people and initially would have said, I need 4 people in content. Now maybe they need 1 or 2.
1 or 2.
So commercially, it makes more sense because your operating costs will go down.
Will go down.
But the other thing is the
And
quality
that
of your
will
work
be
will go
more
up.
productive.
The quality
And
as
the
well
quality.
could increase.
So qualitatively and quantitatively.
Yeah, you're basically moving forward. But now what gets more interesting,
Do we think we really appreciate that?
I think this is kind of round 1. Let's be honest. This is the very early days. This is the internet circa 1995. You know, what was the internet in 1995? Yahoo was the biggest search engine. You know what I
Mosaic
mean?
days.
Yeah. So if we think back that far, that's where exactly we are now. So everything is a lot of activity. There are going to be a lot of startups that are going to disappear because they won't be sustainable. A lot of business models are going to collapse. But ultimately, the thesis will be that generative AI is going to change everything. The same way that we looked at the internet in 1995. We knew it was going to change everything, but we didn't know exactly how, you know?
So let's sort of step into some conspiracy theory conversations when it comes to artificial intelligence. There are 2 sides or even 3 sides to this conversation. One side is saying, guys, be careful. This thing is going to be the end of us. There's a middle ground that says, hey, guys, this is like a knife. If you use it well, it serves you well. If you use it badly, it serves you badly. So let's find a way. Let's make sure that we are using this tool to do the right things for humanity. Then there's the other side that completely says, wait a minute. We don't need this thing. Completely. So you have one side that says AI, generative AI, new tech is the future. Stop even thinking about regulating it. Stop even thinking about policy and stuff like that. Put parameters. One side says, this is great. The other side is like, stop this nonsense.
Well, I think, first of all, each group has their own perspectives on these things.
Yes.
But I think it's almost like that saying, I think many, many years ago, and I don't know if it's actually true, but I remember Bill Gates once said something like, I don't think anyone in the world will ever need a hard drive with more than 1 megabyte. Right? Now, that seems absurd because if you look at how much we just take to download movies and all today, that's over 300, 400, 500 megabytes, right? Now,
My phone is 256
there you
GB
go. So I think when people look at AI,
in my palm.
the biggest, hottest part of it in terms of controversy right now are probably one, the safety issues.
Yes.
Meaning AI has the potential to potentially destroy us. And that could happen in a number of ways. And then the other one is obviously the issue of intellectual property.
Yes.
Right? And I think I'd like us maybe to talk about the intellectual property first.
Okay.
And the reason for this is because, of course, when the AIs like ChatGPT are trained, they're using data on the internet, platforms, websites to actually...
Other people's content.
Yeah, to train the model. And there's a lot of IP that is in there, intellectual property that makes it possible. We're seeing instances where there are people who are publishing books on Amazon as we speak that have been written fully using AI.
A whole book.
And copying authors and even publishing them with a fake author's credentials. It's actually a pretty good book, but it's not the author. And whoever's monetizing that insight or that intellectual property is not the original author. So I think it's going to be one of the biggest debates. At what point do we cut the line between what was originally Ali's or Moses's, and then an AI is able to create content using that insight or that content to create this new piece of work?
It's almost like an illegal Creative Commons.
To that extent, yes. And I think that's going to be the biggest debate going forward, because you probably know about the Hollywood strike right now. There are no movies being made because there's a strike with the writers who want to be paid more money. But the movie studios and all actually want to start using things like AI to replace writers.
Wow.
So these are some of the big issues out there. And I think when you think about intellectual property, especially when it has strategic value or commercial value down the road, you imagine things like code for software. You imagine original ideas. AI has the ability to mimic and recreate and do these things itself. So I think the intellectual property side of things is probably the biggest thing practically right now that's going to be a challenge. And again, we're in the 1995 internet of the world in the context of AI. It's wild, wild west. There are no rules. Nothing is clear.
And even the ones who are creating rules, they don't know what it is that they're creating.
Exactly. So I think in that sense, when we go now to the dangerous side of things, is that does AI have an opportunity to make people lose their jobs? Absolutely. I think if you're like a worker or somebody working in a space where what you do can be easily replicated by AI, you need to be genuinely concerned.
You need to upscale.
Yeah. I remember I think it was during the Wowzy launch. I remember Jeremy, who's now the CEO over at EcoBank, and that time he was at APSA. He gave a narrative about what they did with their loan processing department. At one point, it used to be humans that used to look at your loan applications. They put in robotic process systems, automation, robotic process automation. And now what used to be humans is done by software.
Wow.
They credit score you automatically.
So they basically, the credit officers' jobs are basically gone.
So what happens now is those people are redeployed into front office roles, right? Their job. I always like to say, don't make a human do a robot's job.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because if the robot can do the job much better, why are you having a human do it?
At scale.
And to many ways, that's what generative AI is doing. So the risk of losing jobs and all is there. But for the people in those jobs, the question should be, how can you use AI to augment and even
to enrich their roles?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting times, Moses.
Very interesting times.
Moses, I'm sorry, man. We're coming to the end of this interesting conversation. I just wish we had enough time.
Yeah.
But my team is already starting to tell me this and that.
Yeah, but thank you so much for having
Moses, me. Asante sana. But, I am seriously thinking of bringing a group of us to have an open-ended conversation around this. So
AI
definitely, yes, AI specifically. Yeah. So we'll be calling out on you. Meanwhile, asante sana. Thank you very much. Folks, we're coming to the end of this conversation with Moses. Thank you for listening, for watching. Till next time. Asante. Moses. Cheers, man.